Testing 1 2 3 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3 1 2 3. This. Oh, okay. Why is that? I hate that. Like, it's very distracting. All right, guys. What is it? It's Monday. Happy Monday. Early show today. Early show. And people are probably like, what's going on? Because we usually do this show at 9 p.m. on Mondays. However, I kind of kept begging the judge and asking him, can we do the show early today? Because I have something to do this evening. So I wanted to do something early today. Let me know if you guys can hear me loud and clear, because sometimes with Zoom, I need to turn this up. We can hear you. Thank you, Profound. Um, so here's another thing. I look at the analytics so I can see, okay, who are my audience, my core audience. And my core audience are 40 and up. And these are people who are still working. So I know people are still at work or getting off work. And I get it, which is why we have the 9 p.m. on Mondays and Thursdays, because people are home, whether you on the East Coast or West Coast, people are home and they're settled. But again, sorry for the inconvenience. Early show today because I have something to do tonight. Back to regular programming on Thursday. And how is everybody? Yes, happy Monday. Hi, Deborah. The judge will be up here soon, any minute. I sent him the link. And I'm still doing Zoom. In January, I will be on eCam so that way I could go back to having an intro. But I like Zoom and I like eCam. So just doing a little bit of upgrades, testing some upgrades this month of December. So anyway, excuse me. Today's topics. Of course, we got to talk about Jay-Z. Yes, have to talk about Jay-Z. Is it the downfall of Jay-Z? I hope not. I don't think so. It's way too early, but we do have some new developments. New developments because yes, it was a civil lawsuit against him. Well, included him in the Diddy lawsuit, civil lawsuit, going back to the year 2000. However, Jay-Z released a statement yesterday denying it. And he also, today, about an hour ago, he requested an emergency motion so that the woman that's accusing her, hold on for a second. Sorry about that. So there is a motion. So he filed an emergency motion to have the person who was accusing him reveal who she is. So yeah. And that's only fair. That's only fair. Thank you, Ebony G. Salute to you. Very interested to see what you and Judge Joe Brown have to say on this topic from a legal aspect and theory aspect, working remotely. Hey, yeah, see, my viewers, they're still at work. And so that's what I'm saying. That's why I apologize. Early show, but I got something to do tonight. And so yes, he's the judge. Judge Joe Brown is the legal expert, and I'm going to present my objective opinion and theories. Yes, perfect combination. And of course, what else was breaking news today? Daniel Penny. He was acquitted in the New York City subway chokehold that took place in 2023. I want to say thank you to Third Eye High. He came on the show last week. No, we actually pre-recorded last week and I uploaded it and it's in a membership, but I also uploaded it on my X account at the real Dana number 7. So yeah. Let me just see, make sure he got the link. So because I want to get right into it. We're going to talk about Daniel Penny. We're going to talk about Jay-Z. We got to talk about SCOTUS, Trump, Memphis, Notre-Dame, all that good stuff. So It's a lot, but it's not a lot. And he should be coming up any minute. Honey, I am a stickler. And there most likely there are not going to be any phone calls tonight. It's not going to be any phone calls tonight. If we have time and if the judge wants to take a couple phone calls, we'll do it. But usually the show is 2 hours, but if it's phone calls, I'll extend it for another hour. And so Daniel Penny, and I think I'm gonna put a poll in the chat because a lot of people are calling him a hero, and then you have a lot of people calling him a villain. You have these fake BLM leaders coming out of New York with the press conference, insinuating for Black people to rise up and do what? And do what? They were calling for Black people to hold community meetings, to, I guess, organize and see what is needed where you live at in your community, in your city, which makes sense. But then you have the mainstream media that is saying BLM, Hawk Newsom is calling for Black people to riot. He did not say that, even though he did say, since we have white vigilantes, then we need to have Black vigilantes. What the hell do you mean by that? And if you want to be vigilant of anything, Black people need to be diligent of creating public policies where you live at. That should be the focus. That should be the focus. So, yeah, a lot of people were upset he was acquitted. That was a funny case. Funny, not in humorous, but it was tricky. It was tricky. But it was also odd that the judge threw out a charge and then said, well, just come back with a judgment on this one. Because apparently the juries were deadlocked on the manslaughter charge. And the judge told them, the judge just threw it out. That was kind of odd, but that is why I definitely want the Judge O'Brien, to come on and speak on it. And a lot of people are already, just switching back to Jay-Z, a lot of people are already, public opinion is already labeling Jay-Z as guilty. So Daniel Penny was acquitted. Will Jay-Z be vindicated or acquitted of this civil lawsuit, not criminal? Why not criminal? This happened in 2000. This is 2024, 24 years ago. She's a grown woman. Why not show your face? You're not a minor anymore. It's a lot of questions. Just because someone accused you of something does not mean you did it or that you're guilty. We're supposed to have court of law. But lately, it seems like we have been allowing mainstream media to be the judge and jury, to have a whole lot of influence on these cases, whether it's Trump, Sean Diddy, or Jay-Z, or even Daniel Penny. White, Black, it honestly, race really does not have anything to do with it, even though they want the regular people to make it seem like it's race. But it's not. It is about the haves and the have nots, people who are in power at the top, who have a little bit of power, or wealthy versus powerful people. It's a whole bunch. Poor versus rich. It's a lot of other elements and variables that are involved. But the problem that I have, particularly with this whole Jay-Z situation and situations like that, they always go after just one person, even though it's a chain of events, a chain of command. When we're talking about the music industry, you never see any CEOs of these big top record label corporations being accused or being arrested, for this type of crime. When we talk about Jay-Z, what is this going to affect his position with the NFL? He's in a very powerful position with the NFL organization. And I'm pretty sure whatever his contract is laid out, it is a moral clause in there. But does this affect that and other businesses that Jay-Z have? A lot of business he has with his wife. So it's going to spill on her. Now, I am part of the Beehive, and I am looking forward to Cowboy Carter World Tour. And I hope it's not a delay because of this. But I do want Jay-Z to fight back. I do want Jay-Z to fight back. Who is this lawyer? Tony Busby out of Texas. Who is he? How many, not civil, let's go with criminal. How many criminal cases have you won that's pertaining to sexual assault? How many civil cases has he won pertaining to sexual assault? He filed a lawsuit and had over 100 people claiming to have been a victim of Shawn Combs. He even had a hotline. I believe that is that same lawyer. Who does that? Because he is trying to paint this picture and create this wheel of, they said you did it, so that means you're guilty. He's trying to create some type of tyranny to place people in high positions who are wealthy so he could get money, so he could get media attention, so he could get influence and power himself. Is it about justice? Because if it was, then you would be pursuing this criminally. Or are you working for the feds? So it's a lot going into this. And just because somebody, whether it's a man or a woman, points the finger and says, that person did something to me, doesn't mean that that person who is accusing that person or that person who is claiming to be a victim is telling the truth. So why are we so quick to judge? Where is he at? I really just want to get in and get out. Where is he? I need to make sure he got the link. Did you get the link? Let me send it to him again. I know it takes, it always takes the judge a minute, whether it's Zoom, whether it's StreamYards, whether it's X, it always takes him a minute to come on. But I'm just like, oh my God, like it's 15 minutes after. Let's get to it. Hey, so guys, please like this video. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Share this video, share. Busby been sued himself. Yeah. So Jay-Z is grimy. Well, Danny, do you know Jay-Z? We don't know him. Business people, when you're dealing in the music industry, when you're dealing with contracts, when you're dealing with business, period, they're grimy people on both sides of that table. It's business. It's a, whether it's sports, whether it's entertainment, whether it's finance, it doesn't matter what industry. When you talk about gangsters, when you want to talk about grimy people, they wear a suit and tie. All backgrounds, all genders. So why is Jay-Z the only one that's grimy? You don't know if this woman is telling the truth. He has not been found guilty. So why are we quick to judge? Why do you think he did it? Why? That is a question to ask you, the public. Why do you think Jay-Z is guilty? Because somebody said he did something to them. Why do you believe that? Really ask yourself that question. Yes, there are victims out there, male and female. We always focus on the women. But the moment you ask for money and not a conviction, I'm already putting a question mark on you. I have a question mark bullseye on you. Did you get the link? All right. Okay. All right. So we got to give them a little bit more time. Judge by the company you judge by the company you keep. But you a lot of times you don't know what another grown person is doing. Dana is being naive. Explain to me. Explain to me. We have time. We're waiting for the judge to come on. So we have time. Explain to me, chat. Marco, Dana is being, you said Dana is being naive. How am I being naive? Why do you think that man, Jay-Z, Shawn Carter, is guilty? They have not gone to court. They have not even laid out the evidence. Now, I have the stuff to pull up, but I'm just trying to wait for the judge to come on before, I really get into it. So let me talk to the chat. Whoever is accusing Jay-Z needs to come forth and bring your case forward. Exactly. Show your face. Who are you? He's here in Houston, basically in an ambulance chaser who wins. Okay. So Tony Busby, he wins ambulance cases, any major sexual cases, SA cases, R cases. I don't want to say the full word because, YouTube is tender. The theft of true Arkansas lineage. Okay, that's fine. Why are we judging prematurely? Jay-Z has a reputation of being aligned to an industry with a sore reputation. Yeah, the whole industry is demonic. Whether it's Hollywood, music, it doesn't matter. He guilty, Aaliyah and Foxy Brown. No, first of all, when he met Aaliyah, she was an adult. She wasn't a kid. When she was going up to the Hamptons, and that time she dated Jay-Z, I guess they dated before Damon Dash. You understand? That was in the same year. So if you're accusing Jay-Z of dealing with Aaliyah when she was a kid, then you got to say that about Dame Dash. But she wasn't an adult. She was over 18. She was about 2021. What are you talking about, Big? Big Rara? Foxy Brown came out and said it. Nothing never happened. Nothing. So this is me talking to you guys, right? We are the media. We are social media. And it's so I'm just saying, if we are constantly listen, it's called freedom of press, freedom of speech. So you could state your opinion and how you feel. I'm just asking a question. What bothers me is that it seems like we have a court system or a justice system that has, from time to time, been influenced by the media and public opinion. See, that's one of the main problems that I have. I have another problem is, when we look at New York and California, you allow women to pursue civil cases, but you have a statutory on the criminal for the same crime. Why is that? And in order to have a criminal case bring forward that's been over a decade ago, of a situation that's been over a decade ago, then the federal government has to come in and bring the charges. Yeah, Big Robert, I don't know who Donnie is, so I'm not going to even pay attention to you. The mother of the son Jay-Z isn't claiming was also underage at the time he messed with her. There's a pattern. The mother of what son? How do you know that? How do we know that's his son? Again, this is why I am in media, because I'd rather be on the other side and not be on your side, because it is so easy for people, it's so easy for y'all to hear something and believe it blindly. If it sounds good, you believe it. If it's juicy, you believe it. I can sit up here and I can tell you anything. And if I have a great execution, you guys will believe me. What does that say? And I'm gonna include myself, because I'm not gonna say I'm completely, you know, um, I'm not completely separated from that. But if I come up here and there are people who have perfect diction, they're good speakers, they're good orators. I'm not a good orator, and which makes it very easy for you guys to believe them. The voice of persuasion. That's why people adore Jay-Z for decades. The voice of persuasion, the execution, the flow. Even Diddy, finessing, the finesse, right? Of how to manipulate people through entertainment. Television does that to us. All of us. We are all being manipulated and finessed and persuaded to think one way versus another. And it's like a ping pong. Marco, who's the devil? Who is the devil, Marco? Are you could be the devil. Again, and that's what I'm saying. People like you are you're proving my point. Y'all just gossiping, saying points on social media. Yeah. And you know why? You have a lot of content creators. A lot of content creators know they could know the real truth, but they know that the advertisement, the big marketing companies that place the ads on our videos, which is how we get paid, they get more clicks, more views, higher advertisement dollars when they push out more lies, when they push out more propaganda, when they push out more gossipy tea relationship, when they push out more bullshit. You get more money, you get more eyes on you. It's all a game. Mainstream media has been doing it for decades. Not, I would say mainstream media started being about propaganda in the 80s. Somebody said this, and I heard them say this. Um, Especially the news media. The news media has become entertainment instead of presenting real news when they started playing news stations 24 hours. We never had that until CNN, and then MSNBC came after that with 24-hour news cycle. Before that, and this had to be in the 90s, before that, you watch your evening news and it goes off by what, 7 or 8? And then you watch your evening shows, family shows, and then that's it. And then you don't hear or see the news again until the morning. And a lot of times the morning news would be on the radio. But even after radio, you will see it on television in the morning, and then you won't see it again until the evening. But ever since the 90s, because I believe CNN was the first to have a 24 cycle of the news. And if you're going to have something being pushed 24 hours, 7 days a week, it has to be entertaining to keep people tuning in, for advertisers to place their ads. So you move away from the facts, you move away from being objective to pushing propaganda. And then you have podcasting. And then you have YouTube with content creators. And then you have all these sub outlets, whether you're talking about relationship, when you're talking about celebrity, you have the TMZs. And then now regular people such as myself, we can become media. It's access to everyone. Because at one point you had to be a journalist, you had to go to school, you had to know how to write, you had to know how to speak, you had to actually be a professional and be trained. Now you don't need none of that. A lot of content creators are making more money than some of these people that's on mainstream media. Long gone are the days. Who was that man on ABC? And he died of lung cancer. Oh my God. I think his name starts with a P. He was on ABC out of New York. But all these old, I can't remember all of the seasoned old timer news reporters. Half of them died, the other half retired. Peter Jennings. Yes. Thank you, Danny. Peter Jennings. Come on. Peter Jennings is when the turn of the century in the year 2000, right? He was on the air for 24 hours from December 31st to January 1st to bring in the new millennium. Oh, that was legendary. Peter Jennings. And then what's some other ones? Like a lot of them died or retired. But those journalists from way back do not exist. Rachel Maddow or MSNBC in the morning, whatever that is. It's just, they're being paid by whether it's one political party, whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats, or they want to race hustle. You have Al Sharpton now, he has a show. You have all these supposed to be community activists, right? Even though they're grifters, getting these radio shows, being race hustlers. That's their motto. That is their motto. Listen, let me share this. Lawyers for Shawn Jay-Z Carter are opposing the plaintiff's request to proceed anonymously. For months, an extortionate campaign has been targeting this named defendant under cover of darkness. So Jay-Z has officially filed a court or filing. Okay. Oh, this is a judge here. Oh God. Why do I keep clicking the wrong damn thing? Because I was about to get into the show. Let's see. Okay. And ask to unmute. Hey. You got the signal?
Yeah, I finally did. Okay, let me.
Yeah, the landscape. How are you? You look good.
Don't feel good, but anyway.
I thought you was feeling a little bit better.
Yeah, but that isn't good. That still isn't feeling good.
Oh. Well, at least you look good, honey.
Even when good it does me.
Well, even if we're not feeling good, I don't want to look the way I feel if I'm not feeling good. I still rather look like I'm feeling good. I'd rather look good when I'm not feeling good. But okay, let's get into it. Let's start with Daniel Penny. He was found not guilty. I just want to play a clip.
Breaking news. The jury has reached a unanimous verdict in the case of Daniel Penny. He's been found not guilty on the charge of criminally negligent homicide. Now, remember what was at stake here. The jury could not agree on manslaughter. They failed to agree twice. The judge gave them another bite at the apple on this lesser charge, negligent. They now say not guilty. Breaking news.
And
I don't understand New York with its general failure to charge lesser included offenses, which a lot of states do automatically. In other words, it's a reversal if you don't charge the list of lesser included offenses. New York, we've seen what with basically centering around the Trump prosecutions, has been very reluctant to do that. And I think that contributes to the problem. And the other point is that I don't see anything this man did that even closely approximated wrong. Somewhere in here, we have to develop the idea that there is a general accountability that can be expected of all citizens or residents in an area when it comes to compliance with the requirements of collective public peace, dignity, and order. And when somebody breaks those rules, they do so at their peril, particularly when the deceased in this case has such an apparently long record of assaultive and violent behavior against strange individuals, particularly women. And there is a responsibility of the males, the men in the district, to protect the women in the district. And sometimes things just happen that maybe are slightly excessive. There was no weaponry involved in this. It was all physical force, bare hand physical force. And somebody didn't make it, and the person that didn't make it brought it on himself. And of course, you can say he was mentally ill, but somewhere in there, you have to say that you're going to be serious about treating mental illness, but then you run into this problem of, oh my God, people need to be protected. And then you have other things of mental illness that people have gotten away from to deal with this rainbow cult nonsense, where the obvious mental illness of having personal gender identification problems because something's wrong with your mind, that's supposed to be normal, which it's not. So because of a lot of political and social expediencies, we have kind of drifted from the point. We've got another one we can touch on, and that's a matter of coherence in our system. For example, let's say there is a criminal homicide and a civil homicide that arises out of the same incident. Say somebody's killed and the family, let's say, wants to allege that the killing was not justifiable, so it's actionable civilly. Well, they have 2 years to bring a lawsuit in most states. 1 year in a lot, and 3 years in a very, very few, and that's it. But then you turn around and you get California, New York, and everything else off of a booty or a titty squeeze, and you get 35 to 50 years to file it. So when did that become more serious than a homicide? You see, when you start talking about political objectives, social objectives, you start drifting. And somewhere in here, it's like, people will turn their heads and say, well, good riddance. And I hate to say that, but I've been a criminal court judge and I have signed death warrants on people and imposed death penalties. So it is what it is. There's public peace, dignity, and order. That is a requirement. and we've drifted far from it, and our cities have become hellholes, cesspools, islands of chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere in there, public, personal assessments of peace, dignity, and order are going to have to be remade.
So I wanted to play Daniel Penny response.
East Village in Manhattan. So I take the subway multiple times a day. In this instance, I was coming from school. I got out of class around 2:15 and I took the I was at J Street Metro Tech, took the Uptown F train. At Second Avenue, a man came on, stumbled on, appeared to be on drugs. The doors closed and he ripped his jacket off and threw it at the people sitting down to my left. I was listening to music at the time, and he was yelling, so I took my headphones out to hear what he was yelling. And the three main threats that he repeated over and over was, "I'm going to kill you. I'm prepared to go to jail for life, and I'm willing to die." You know, this was a scary situation. And Mr. Neely came on. He was threatening. I'm 6'2", and he was taller than me. So it was, and there's a common misconception that Marines don't get scared. We're actually taught one of our core values is courage, and courage is not the absence of fear, but how you handle fear. And, you know, I was scared for myself, but I looked around, I saw women and children. He was yelling in their faces, saying these threats. I couldn't just sit still. Some people say that I was holding on to Mr. Neely for 15 minutes. This is not true. I mean, between stops is only a couple minutes. So the whole interaction lasted less than 5 minutes. Some people say I was trying to choke him to death, which is also not true. I was trying to restrain him. You can see in the video, there's a clear rise and fall of his chest, indicating that he's breathing. I'm trying to restrain him from him being able to carry out the threats. And then some people say that this was about race, which is absolutely ridiculous. I didn't see a black man threatening passengers. I saw a man threatening passengers. It's a lot of whom were people of color. The man who helped restrain Mr. Neely was a person of color. And then a few days after the incident, I read in the papers that a woman of color came out and called me a hero. I don't believe that I'm a hero, but she was one of those people that I was trying to protect. We were all scared. Mr. Neely was yelling in these passengers' faces, and they looked terrified. The reason why there was no video at the start of the altercation was because people were too afraid getting away from him, and the videos didn't start until they saw that situation was under control. I knew I had to act, and I acted in a way that would protect the other passengers, protect myself, and protect Mr. Neely. I used this hold to restrain him, and I did this by leaving my hand on top of his head to control his body. You can see in the video, there's a clear rise and fall of his chest, indicating that he was still breathing. And I'm calibrating my grip based on the force that he's exerting. And I was trying to keep him on the ground until the police came. I was praying that the police would come and take this situation over. I didn't want to be put in that situation, but I couldn't just sit still and let him carry out these threats.
All right. So
Okay. Personal little experience. I did this to somebody, choked them out. That's what it's called. And it was 2013 in the ski season at a club in Aspen, Colorado. Big New Zealander who got out of hand and was going around trying to rip the tops off of female guests, including my ex-wife and a goddaughter of ours. So I just got him, subdued him, put him on the ground, choked him out. Well, let's put it this way. When he started to go out, I said, I'm going to give you a little more pressure. Next time, I'm going to light it up on the pressure so you won't pass completely out. But if you resist, I'll put you all the way out. Now, here's the trick. you're not obstructing the person's breathing. So the chest going in and out is no indication on whether or not he's getting blood flow to the brain. The typical grown man, if his hands are not small, and mine aren't small, I do an XXL glove, size 12. I can take these two fingers on most men's throats, place them approximately over the carotid artery complex on each side, meaning the index finger here, and the thumb over there, and squeeze, and not necessarily hard, and I'll put you out. It takes 10 seconds before you will lose visuals and 15 seconds before you faint. Problem is you cause brain damage if you hold that restriction of the blood flow. Now, the interesting thing is if somebody has been hyperventilating, excited, they oxygenate the brain. They do not exercise this carotid sinus complex, which gives a person a sense of air hunger. It's a particularly hazardous condition for people who are breath hold diving, because if you are heavily oxygenated, you purge yourself of carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide buildup is what gives you the air hunger feeling. And what happens is you run out of oxygen in your system for your brain to function on, but you don't feel an air hunger. We used to do this as kids, just stand up and hyperventilate 15, 20 times, close your eyes, hold your breath, and the next thing you'd wind up on the ground. You would reflexively start breathing again, but you'd pass out. So the deal is you restrict the oxygen flow through the blood flow to the brain, and the individual who is the target does not feel an oxygen hunger, an air hunger, but they're suffering from a lack of oxygen. So after 15, 20 seconds, it starts getting very dangerous, and people don't know that much about it. They see it in the movies and they try it. It works. But again, this person brought it on himself. And if anything, this would have been negligent homicide at the worst, not manslaughter.
So let's talk about the race part. I want to play these two.
That's the Democratic Party. They turn everything into race, and the woke idiots, everything's racial. And this had nothing to do with a white man taking out a black man. It was, as he said, a citizen restraining somebody who was violating public peace, dignity, and order.
It's like everybody else has vigilantes. We need some black vigilantes.
Right.
People want to jump up and choke us and kill us for being loud. How about we do the same when they attempt to oppress us?
Oh, give it a break.
I know you're looking for us to be like, oh, go and march, go and march. No. This weekend, I want you to hold a community event everywhere from the Bronx to Houston to Seattle to Florida. Black people hold community events and talk about what you need. It's like everybody.
What you need is for us to act like we've got some damn sense and to not sit there and try to promote this kind of garbage like it's normal. It's not. Black folk can act as decent as anybody else. And you go in these neighborhoods, and what a lot of people don't realize is because the press never publishes it. For the last 50 years, I've been practicing criminal law. For every somebody that's hollering like this, you got 25, 30 folk going, good riddance, man. He sat up there, made life miserable, man. Couldn't nobody go around, have no peace in this neighborhood cause of that folk. Man, we need to go get that. What kind of whiskey that dude drink, man? We gonna get him a bottle for getting rid of a problem, man. See, juries come back. You have 12 people on the jury. 9 of them are black, or 10 of them are black out of the 12, and they come back with a unanimous question. Your Honor, if we feel that the victim deserved killing, do we have to convict the defendant? So, that's not unusual.
Right.
So people need to get over that and start talking about the big problem, which is the lack of manhood in our neighborhoods, because there's no fatherhood in those neighborhoods to teach these boys manhood. And some of this stuff is just way off the deep end, way outside of public peace, dignity, and order needs to stop, because our neighborhoods need to be as quality possessed when it need to be possessed of as much quality and excellence of being there as any other neighborhood. Doesn't need to be hellhole where you're sharing some profane matter with somebody on the far side of a parking lot because you have no manners, or you're sitting in a restaurant and everybody on the front side of the restaurant can hear what you're saying in the back, or vice versa. Act like you got some couth, and a lot of this stuff would happen. And by the way, it's been my personal observation in life that the most dangerous human beings are the most polite with each other, whether you're talking about real life organized crime figures, or you're talking about warriors.
Well, they did hold a press conference. I guess Jordan Neely's family and I guess attorney, after the jury, the verdict came out this morning that he was acquitted. I could play a little bit. It's 3 minutes.
I don't want to hear it. It's going to be the same end thing of woe is us, and you're going to get Ben Crump coming up here to try and file a civil suit that he'll settle because he's afraid to get in front of the jury on it.
Well, you remember the Eric Garner situation, who he died while the police putting him in a chokehold with the police.
Yeah, they got a little excessive.
Yeah, his mom was part of this press conference, and she was lending her support, and she was saying, she fought for almost 10 years to have the chokehold banned from police officers, but she was saying how the chokehold should not be allowed by regular people to use it as well.
Why not? I've done it before, learned how to do it more than a half century ago, and my instructor was my brother, who Black Belt Magazine said was probably the most dangerous human alive in North America for 2 decades. Mm-hmm. So he also was an executive producer on my show. His name was Master Clifford Stewart, late of Los Angeles, Dr. Clifford Stewart. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, look him up.
Yeah. All right. Well,
so, I mean, it's safe if you know what you're doing. But then there's this thing. Humans are not that easy. We're not that weak. Mm-hmm. But it's not that we can't do somebody in as quickly. It's not like you see in the movies where you get a lot of this and somebody goes down. You see lucky shots getting taken by most people who don't know what they're doing. They think a good blow, say to the chin, straight back, will take somebody out quickly. Not necessarily. What will guarantee to take them out is a clip to the chin that causes the head to rotate even slightly at a violent rate, and that causes the brain to remain still while the skull rotates around it, which causes it to be shocked, which will put somebody out. It's the rotation rather than just the jolt. Now, other than that, what kind of choice do you have? You can put an elbow to somebody's temple, but that's going to require a much heavier blow than if you're relying on rotation. But most of the time, you can't do that, and that's going to leave bruising. But if you get the arm back around and you're choking somebody, you use the bicep and you use the forearm muscles, to squeeze onto the carotid artery, and it will quickly put somebody down, but you should be counting 1,000, 2, 1,000. And when you get to 10, you usually won't have any problem because they can't see anymore. And if you go 5 more seconds, they'll pass out. Now you got a leeway in there, 10, 15
Well, let
seconds.
me also add this because I did not know. I don't know if this came out, but this person that I did Third Eye High pre-recorded talking about Daniel Penny last week. He did say earlier that day that Jordan Neely ingested K12 or K2 is a drug. So, just I don't want to go into George Floyd, but George Floyd had so a lot of times when you have some type of substance in your system already from ingesting that day, and then this happens to you, number one, it explains his erratic behavior. Number two, when someone do put you in any type of chokehold, because of the stuff that you are already dealing with, can speed up the process or cause something fatal to happen in a situation where normally it won't be so fatal. You get what I'm saying?
Oh, I get it. And then there's another protocol too that doesn't get taught because of the lack of manhood teaching. It's called tapping out. In other words, it's polite, even when you had lethal duels as a popular thing in Europe and in America. Lord Bullington, of you satisfaction, sir. Would you please advise Sir Wilberforce that is satisfaction? That's not necessary anything further. Or a tap out. In other words, just like you see in a wrestling match, tap out. Okay, enough's enough. I quit. I surrender. Battlefield's going on. A prisoner throws his hands up. I surrender. Protocols, don't shoot the guy. He surrenders. See, we have these things that are part of the masculine complex. And when you don't teach these masculine things, people, one, don't know them to evoke them, and two, don't have any idea about when and how it's applied. And the other thing is, this is the big one. Fist fights are so uncommon these days that when a boy gets 20, 22, 24 years old, he may never have been in a fist fight in his entire life, where if he's from my generation, he's got 10, 15, 20, 25 fist fights he's been in, that at least where he has got the experience, so it ain't no big thing. So he kind of gets the idea of what's going to provoke what. And some things you just don't do.
Well,
so
I want to move on to Jay-Z, right?
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
So, breaking news, this came down yesterday. Jay-Z is named in a civil suit alleging we're just going to use R for that word, 4-letter, of a 13-year-old in 2000. A new lawsuit accuses Jay-Z and Sean Diddy Combs of R-ing a 13-year-old girl at a party following the 2000 MTV VMAs. The accuser, Jane Doe, claims she was drugged and assaulted by both men at a house party. The lawsuit, originally filed in October against Combs, was refiled Sunday to include Jay-Z. Combs already faces federal charges, including sex trafficking, while Jay-Z team has yet to comment. Doe is seeking damages under New York's Gender Motivated Violence Protection Act. Now, Jay-Z did respond yesterday.
My reaction to that is the law has gotten ridiculously out of hand here. If you take all of the states in the United States of America, for a personal injury or a personal harm or wrong, there's generally either a 1, 2, or very rarely a 3-year statute of limitations. In other words, if somebody says, okay, the state may be charging this guy with murder, is a criminal charge, we, the family, can charge this guy with a civil charge of homicide. We get 1 year or 2 years, maybe 3. But somebody pinches a booty or a titty, they get 50 years to file their lawsuit. It's like, excuse me, the squeeze is not as serious in the scheme of things when it comes to an orderly society as an outright homicide. So what is it about this where you have skewed the law for these things to happen? Now, this woman, if she was 13, 24 years ago, is now 37 years old. So you mean to tell me that by now, this has gone on 13 years old? What the devil's happening? Didn't your mama get upset about it? Your father get upset about it? About where were you? And you didn't deal with it? What's happening 24 years ago is a lot of time when it comes to witnesses. You can't put a trial on. And there are all sorts of other things, evidentiary wise, when it comes to the proof that a person is able to generate and put on in a courtroom that is very much stacked against the defendant. I have watched in a trial while some horrible stuff goes on. One of the worst I've ever seen didn't have anything to do with a statute of limitations. It was a criminal charge. This person was indicted for an especially aggravated charge of R. And what saved him was a very interesting and absolute save. There was a lot of confusion about when this has supposedly occurred, and when it was nailed down, fortunately, two of the defendant's buddies were still in the United States Army, and they got his records sent over by a master sergeant. And when they got there, the state wanted to object to them being allowed to put on their proof. I let them do it, and it turned out that the defendant was in a tank turret, an M60 tank turret in Germany, right there between West Germany and East Germany at the Fulda Gap, guarding the West from a tank incursion coming out of the Ukraine. And this was supposed to have been 1989 when this occurred. The trial was in 1991. And this man was in a tank turret. He was a tank commander, and he had no leave, and he was verified to be there with the division records, regimental records, and the battalion records, operating a tank on a full-blown NATO exercise at the time this crime was supposed to be committed. So he was 9,000 miles away with no ability to get there, and he was there the day before in the field, bivouac. He commanded the tank. The tank got commemorated or cited for outstanding excellence in the activity, and he was there for the next 3 days, so it would have been possible for him. The other thing that I found interesting about it was we thought the case was going to be dismissed because it's set for trial for the third time, and the state is looking for its victim, and did realize they were looking at the victim, but they thought the victim was an ugly looking guy. So he had been sitting there for the last 2-3 trial sittings, and she'd been sitting there in the witness room, and nobody even recognized it for being a woman.
What's your point?
The point is that sometimes when you get these boutique crimes, you get them out of hand, and they work an injustice if you don't have a very sharp defense lawyer, which this guy couldn't afford. And the only reason he got me was because the public defender's office had a conflict and the guy couldn't hire a private attorney. He got me as a judge, and I wound up giving him.
What does that have to do with the Jay-Z situation?
Well, in other words, it's just this thing that we had developed at that point, where there was a particular preference given to the prosecutability of certain kind of crimes versus others. So when you started slanting justice, saying we want to make it easier to prosecute this kind of crime with reduced standards of proof, you start running into instances of misjustice. If there had not been a judge like me presiding over the case to say, to hell with you, I'm letting this proof in, this man probably would have been convicted and his life ruined. As it was an innocent man who was on trial. He wasn't even in the United States of America. This was supposed to be the R word, especially aggravated, that occurred in Memphis, Tennessee, at a time when the defendant was in a tank turret in Germany, East. So, in other words, what it was is everybody was bending over backwards to be sensitive to the plaintiff.
Need to bring it back to New York and present
So
day.
I am. In other words, the whole point is in other words, you institute a civil case almost a quarter century after it is alleged to have happened, when in most of the United States, even if it was a homicide, you wouldn't have but 1, 2, or at most 3 years to bring the lawsuit.
So let me read this. The allegations against the billionaire and hip hop mogul, Mr. Combs, who is facing federal sex trafficking and racketeering charges and at least 30 lawsuits accusing him of sexual misconduct. One of those lawsuits, filed in October, accused Mr. Combs and an anonymous celebrity of R-ing the teen at an after party following the MTV Music Awards in 2000. On Sunday, the plaintiff amended the lawsuit to name Jay-Z as the other celebrity, asserting in court papers that he and Mr. Combs took turns R-ing her after she arrived at a party and drank part of a drink that made her feel woozy and lightheaded. Jay-Z called the claims idiotic and said that he came from a world where we protect children. Mr. Combs has denied all allegations of sexual assault and misconduct and has pleaded not guilty to the criminal charges. Now, also what happened an hour ago, not only did he issue his statement, his lawyers fired back in a court filing Monday today after he and Shawn Diddy Combs were accused of R-ing a 13-year-old at an after party. Carter filed a motion Monday to deny the plaintiff's request to remain anonymous, calling for either her identity to be disclosed or the suit to be dismissed. Now, she is being represented, the so-called victim is being represented by Texas attorney Tony Busby of conducting, and Jay-Z is accusing him of conducting an extortionate campaign. This is the same guy who created this hotline for people to call who felt at one point that they were victimized by Diddy, and they had over 100 people filing a complaint against Shawn Combs. So he's a personal injury lawyer out of Houston. He's filed at least 20 essays, lawsuits against Mr. Combs, and used a phone hotline, Instagram, and news conference to find clients. So is he the real deal, or is he just another like a Ben Crump, but on this side of the law, you know?
What you have is a growing trend in law to convert it from a profession to a business. And I've noticed that the best businessmen, when it comes to practice of law, are not necessarily the best professionals when it comes to the practice. It all depends on motivation. Now, sometimes they are. I'll give you a quick anecdote. For several years back in the 90s, I was a guest lecturer at Yale Law School on the subject of representing.
Another long story.
No, there's not another one, but people need to understand these things. And it was a week-long seminar or series of lectures on poverty representation or representation of indigent criminal defendants. I came up with a long reading list that would get people up to speed on what the subject was about. And the first time I did it at Yale and sent the list forward, I was surprised when I discovered that damn near every one of the 40 plus students who had signed up for the classes had read the material in a very short period of time. And it had been my experience that most students might brush over the stuff, just take a look at it, and that's it. They'd actually read it in detail and could discuss it at length. So I'm asking this guy whose family opened up a law firm 180 years ago, and I'm saying, well, why you, considering the fees that your firm charges, are you interested in poverty law representation when it comes to criminal offenses? He said, well, our law firm believes in giving back to the community, so we do pro bono work. So I'm going to be the best damn pro bono lawyer I can be. So I said, whoa, that's impressive professionalism. And then I'd been doing the same series at other law schools that were lesser, and all they were relying upon was my lectures, and nobody read anything at most of the law schools except some of the very top ones. So I noted that the people that got into the top caliber law schools tended to do the extra work, and the ones that were, well, essentially mediocre students didn't do the stuff, didn't even try to. And that, I think, has got something to do with the practice of law. It's an opportunity to make a lot of money fairly quickly, and it causes the public to suffer. The fees are extraordinarily high. They're way out of proportion. The work that is done is very little in proportion to what ought to be done. The competence is low, and you have both judges, prosecutors, and defense lawyers and plaintiff lawyers who have a lot of clients, make a lot of money, and they're essentially rookies or amateurs because they have not done what it takes to really learn the profession, particularly when it comes to lack of trial experience.
Which is why they try to go for the civil case till they could get money and get a quick settlement.
Yeah, because on a criminal case, there's always this remedy called post-conviction relief, which is outside of the appeal and separate. Somebody can come in, and one of the most frequent two types of successful complaints is, one, incompetence of counsel, or two, ineffective assistance of counsel.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to stick here on Jay-Z for a little bit longer. It says many of the lawsuits did not survive because the plaintiffs declined to be named. However, in this case, the judge said that then 13-year-old showed significant cause to continue anonymously. What does that mean? What can you show how old is she? 37 now?
37. So what's the legitimacy for that?
It doesn't say, but apparently a judge felt as though she has significant cause to continue to be anonymous and not give up her identity.
Well, look at New York.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have a question. So this is a civil suit, but can now the feds that is prosecuting Diddy with this civil suit adding Jay-Z, can the feds add Jay-Z onto those criminal charges that they're charging Sean Diddy Combs with?
Well, they did something like that. They only charged Diddy with 3 counts of indictment. But instead of it taking one long page or at most 2 pages, as would be typical for a 3-count Mann Act indictment in the federal system, which I'm quite familiar with, they took 14 pages and they put in all sorts of salacious things that have absolutely nothing to do with the criminal charges, where they're trying to influence the jury. That's the same federal prosecutor who charged Mayor Adams with 4 indictment counts, but took 57 pages to do it, including a lot of pictures of upscale hotels and hotel rooms trying to negatively influence the public for public relations purposes. See, there is this change. First thing Trump needs to do, since it's a high profile location, is quickly make one of his first appointments for U.S. attorney somebody else rather than the clown that they have there in New York City right now, who is a disgrace.
He's resigning this week. This is his last week.
Good.
So Yeah.
Get him the hell out of there.
But as for the purpose of Jay-Z, when you have this civil case, this particular civil case has nothing to do with the federal case, but can the feds use that to add more?
No, they can't.
Okay.
Because there's a statute of limitations that's long run on the civil matter, and its only thing they have is the 14 section, which deals with Mann Act violations, which we call them in the profession, and that's transporting females across state lines for illicit purposes.
Can the federal government create charges for Jay-Z, separate charges?
That I'm saying they don't have a series of charges, criminal charges that would embrace that.
Have nothing to charge him with.
That's right. Nothing federal.
But can they use or take something or go further deeper with this civil lawsuit? Like, can
No,
this?
they might try to bring the civil suit in to inflame prospective jurors, which they do. That's what you looked at with this whole Trump thing, whether it was Fannie or whether it was Smith or whether it was Bragg or whether it was Tish. They were trying to use the press to inflame the public. So the public, 34 convictions. No, all of them are bullshit. They're going nowhere. This is just abuse of law. So the real case is you saw in real time people who abused the law, criminally abused the law. This was not what was intended. This is why we have the Bill of Rights and why the 14th Amendment, amongst other things it does, implies that due process, or specifically applies due process to the states, whereas before it was only under the Fifth Amendment to the federal government.
Now, Jay-Z is saying, no, sir, it had the opposite effect. It made me want to expose you for the fraud you are in a very public fashion. So no, I will not give you one red cent. That's what he said in his statement to this attorney, Tony Busby. And he should not. And, you know, when we look, remember, was the look back law that New York allowed for 2 years? Is that, see, it's a chain effect to where with that law, the lawyers, they all got together and said, listen, we're not going to take cases unless the person that's being accused is making 500,000 or more, because there's no profit if he's a regular man making 60K a year. So, so where's the justice, right? So, and it's all civil, it's all about money. It was all about money and not about actual justice. Because I would like to ask a woman, if you are not fighting for criminal charges, but you take money, how is that money making your situation, what so-called happened to you, better?
And where were you that night anyway? And how is it that your parent or parents did not jump you for being gone all night? And then what were you trying to do? And who were you hanging out with to be at the party in the first place?
Which is probably why she wants to stay anonymous, because if we see a picture of her at 13, she probably looks like a 13-year-old. So then you have to ask yourself, they knew you were a minor. Why were you so-called there? Were you even there? And then two, if it was an after party, it had to be camera somewhere, but I guess before, you know, it's a reason why she wants to stay anonymous. And it's not because she wants her privacy, because when you accuse someone, especially a high profile, accusing someone and with that accusation, you have no more privacy. So why not show your face? Why not give us your name?
And then it may be somebody might say, oh, I was there. No, how did she get out of the house dressed like that?
Right. Where were your parents?
In a wig and, you know, a weave and no telling what. And see, the R word for somebody that age, I think it should be the R word for somebody 13. because they can't consent. But find it interesting. The same people that are saying she couldn't consent at 13 are saying it's all right for a boy to cut his dick off or a girl at the same age to cut her tits off,
So here's another thing.
because,
How can Jay-Z, how can Jay-Z defend himself when he don't even know this person name, her identity, and okay, what is the evidence?
how you gonna go get a detective out there or a detective crew? Who are we looking for?
And he has his right to hire an investigator.
Mm-hmm.
So is this attorney is he hoping he'd be so scared with all the heat on Shawn Combs? Shawn Combs, that Shawn Carter would just write us a check to make it all go away. And first of all, Diddy, Shawn Combs, made the mistake writing that girl that $30 million check last year, because as soon as he wrote the check, then all this other accusation started coming down. Jay-Z saw that. He's seen that he's not going to give nobody nothing, guilty or not. And he's not guilty because he hasn't been guilty.
Well, see here, let me give you one other little thing. I have gone to law schools and lectured over the last 25 years. And when I went to law school, we got taught, don't take the case if there is not a meritorious issue that can be resolved at trial.
What does that mean?
In other words, what's going to happen if you go in front of a jury? Is there a likelihood of success? Remember the thing about Joe Biden did everything you accused Donald Trump of about the documents, but he's an old guy and the jury isn't likely to convict him. But then again, 2.5 years difference between him and Donald Trump, that doesn't apply to Donald Trump. See, it's politically motivated. So what winds up happening is we were taught, don't take the case if you can't win it or you don't have a realistic chance of winning it in front of a jury. Nowadays, when you peep into a law school course, what they wind up telling the lawyers is, this case you'll never win at trial, but the embarrassment value is such that you are likely to be able to extort a settlement out of the defendant for the nuisance value of the thing. So now you are encouraging lawsuits that are not winnable lawsuits. It's the embarrassment, it's the extortive aspect of it. And this also goes along with the federal criminal law that Joe Biden, James Eastland, Byrd, former Grand Dragon of the Klan, there's a cabal they had. They introduced legislation that passed 40 years ago, so the federal prosecutors can bring cases with no realistic proposition of getting a conviction, but using the pendency of the cases for embarrassment.
One last question on Jay-Z.
I just think it's wrong for these statute of limitations to be changed like this.
Also, what do you, I can't ask you what do you think he should do because you will be giving legal advice, right?
No, I haven't talked to him. That wouldn't be legal advice, but go ahead.
So in this situation, do you think that this would be thrown out? What should the next steps that Jay-Z should do?
Well, they're forum shopping, and it's in New York City area, New York metropolitan area. So you can't guarantee what's going to happen on the front end. But if you can afford it, I'd say fight it.
Yes.
One of the reasons for that is a lot of the lawyers that are filing the lawsuits can't prosecute a trial. They don't know how. I give this example. You walk into a doctor's office that your family physician has referred you to, You see the medical degrees on the wall. And then you find out that the doctor you got referred to has had no experience as either an intern nor a resident. And you start losing confidence. You say, oh, this guy's got book learning, but no hands-on experience. Now, in the law, it used to be in American law that practitioners got the opportunity to work for a government agency, state, local, municipal, or the feds, or you worked for a prosecutor's office or a defender's office or a public interest group, and you got a chance to try cases. And when you're actually dealing with some human being on the other side, or 12 of them or 6 of them having to render the verdict on what you have presented, you get an idea after a while as to what works, much outside of the books. But we have judges who are on a bench who have had absolutely no trial experience as lawyers, let alone as judges. And we get people who get a lot of cases, some semblance of fame for settling them, but having zero to very limited experience when it comes to trying those cases. And then we get stuff like we were looking at with the cabinet position reactions, where the FBI threatens to resign in mass if so-and-so is appointed, or the injustice. Well, a lot of times you may have people who have a lot of experience in a subject because they've been there taking the pitches and seeing whether they're balls or strikes, running the bases, seeing how the fly balls look when they're up against the sky or the silhouette of bright sunlight, and getting ideas how the game works. First is those people who just read about it and never played the game, which, by the way, is one reason sometimes there is a weird thing that happens when the feminists start hollering about they want a woman coach of a male ball team, and the female coach and say something like football hasn't had the experience to get knocked silly or halfway unconscious or really getting hurt by getting hit hard to fall back on when they start trying to inspire the boys. And it's not what's good. So we have amateurs who are doing stuff because they wanted to do it or because they make money, and they're not necessarily qualified. It's like, I want to fly a 737. Well, yeah, but you don't have a pilot's license. So what makes you think we can turn one loose on you, and you can fly a 737? Doesn't work.
I want to move on. I want to move on to SCOTUS. We spoke about this briefly last week, but we didn't do a show. So the Supreme Court appears to be ready to uphold Tennessee's ban on youth transgender care. Oral arguments last week, Wednesday, on December 4th morning, a majority of the Supreme Court seemed ready to allow Tennessee to continue to enforce law banning the use of puberty blockers and hormone therapy for transgender teenagers without confronting the higher level of scrutiny required for equal protection concerns. Tennessee Solicitor General argued that the law is simply a medical regulation and does not distinguish based on sex. So Supreme Court is ready to allow Tennessee to continue to enforce a law banning the use of puberty blockers and hormone therapy for teenagers. I think that is a good thing. However, how many justices we have? 9?
9.
And the 3 witches, of course, voted against the ban. And I do want to play audio of.
Well, look, What
Can
are
I say
you?
something first before I play the audio?
Okay, I was just going to say it's funny. When you hear this, keep in mind the latest confirmation hearing. Can you tell us what a woman is?
Right.
I don't know what a woman is. See, they were sending signals for this tranny thing.
Well, wait a minute. Oh, this is all right. So let me play the this is the clip. It's 2 clips here.
Being drawn by the statute. That was sort of like the starting point. The question was whether it was discriminatory because it applied to both races and it wasn't, necessarily invidious or whatever. But, as I read the statute here, the case here, the court starts off by saying that Virginia is now one of 16 states which prohibit and punish marriages on the basis of racial classifications. And when you look at the structure of that law, it looks in terms of you can't do something that is inconsistent with your own characteristics. It's sort of the same thing. So it's interesting to me that we now have this different argument, and I wonder whether Virginia could have gotten away with what they did here by just making a classification argument the way that Tennessee is in this case.
Yes, I think that's exactly right, that there is absolutely a parallel between any law that says you can't act inconsistent with a protected characteristic and in all other
being drawn.
So basically, Ketanji Brown Jackson, she compared bans on sex changes for kids
Loving
on interracial marriage.
Loving is the case. And
Yeah.
I remember when that was a live case, and I kept up carefully with the protocols and the arguments, and there's an extremely different situation. You cannot objectively change what you are. Okay?
Right.
What you are becomes obvious because there is no way of disguising it for the most part, though there is a thing called passing. All right.
Mm-hmm.
When there is something that is not blatantly obvious, is a status. In other words, we have a situation where you go to a carnival and they say no one shorter than the following mark can get on this ride. You've been there, right?
Right.
Why is that? Because it's a safety matter. In other words, the equipment on this ride is not going to protect or make it safe for somebody of lesser height. This could be a little short person like Judge Judy or a midget, or it can be a child. In other words, I'm sorry, but you just aren't physically big enough to ride this attraction. There's nothing personal. That way, you are permitted to regulate it. You have to be a certain height to get on this ride. Now, if you say you can't get on this ride because you think you are a short person, when actually physically you may be tall enough to get on the ride, you can't say it's discriminatory because somebody says they think they're a short person and not normal height when actually they are. So you can't say we're going to take what their delusion is and base the classificational assessment on their delusion. In other words, are you the 4 feet 6 inches tall that it requires, the 7 inches tall it requires to get on this ride? Or are you in fact 5 feet 2, but you just think you're 5 feet 6, 4 feet 6?
I want to play this second clip.
that it operates on the body in the same way. So what's your basis for saying they're not the same?
I don't think it operates on the body in the same way. Take testosterone. If you give a boy with a deficiency testosterone because he has constitutional delayed puberty, that allows him to go through and develop the reproductive organs associated with being a male. If you give it to a girl, it renders the girl infertile. So we have 8 to 12-year-olds.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought your reasons for them being different was that you said they were for different purposes. I'd heard you say at the beginning, the reason those two are different is because one wants them to transition and the other wants them for some medical purpose.
Well, to go back to my example in the introduction, I don't think anyone would say using morphine to assist suicide is the same treatment as using morphine to manage pain. It's the same drug, just like it's the same drug here, but they're being used for fundamentally different purposes. They have different effects on the body. And once you take out and recognize medical reality, then there is no argument that our law differentiates between treatments for males and females.
Can I ask you about one?
So basically, Biden Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Jackson Brown again says there's no difference between giving testosterone to boys and girls. Therefore, heinous discrimination.
Look, let's get the extreme thing. See, she's making a classic first-year law student move, which is there's a difference between getting a broke femur and a broke flange in one of your fingers. Law students confuse it all the time. No, the principle is what led to the breakage and whether there's liability, not the severity of the consequences. Let's take it this way. The extreme version of what was said is, why then can't men get hysterectomies?
Right, because
they don't have a uterus,
right,
to get excised. Why can't women get castrated? They don't have testes. So you see, some things, testosterone does certain things on boys, which exemplifies or enhances male characteristics, and estrogen given to the boy does not. So what is the purpose that you are giving a drug that does not do something that's natural to the person?
One last thing on this. It says Supreme Court won't hear parents' challenge to the school's gender identity policies. Wisconsin parents hope the Supreme Court would take their case, arguing schools' gender identity support plans undermine parental authority, but the justices declined, with Thomas Alito and Kavanaugh dissenting. Parents claim such policies bypass them and harm families, even when no child is directly affected. The school argues the parents want courts to issue broad rulings on political issues without real harm. This decision leaves unresolved debates about schools' parenting rights and transgender student supports, with similar cases already heading for the high court.
Well, in other words, what's going on? Translation, this is press problem here. What's really behind this is the case isn't ripe for adjudication on the appellate level, or at least not their level, and there's some facts that need to be found and put into the record.
So these parents are arguing, parents hope the Supreme Court would take their case, arguing schools' gender identity support plans undermine parental authority, meaning I don't have input as a parent in these gender identity support.
Yeah, that what happened is not going to be dispositive toward the case generally.
Mm-hmm.
It's not right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
In other words, it's still growing, and you got to find out. So I can see the parents, and I happen to agree with the conservative majority with their assessments. You might as well. And what's going on with the bare bones 6 is something that is interesting, and it's this. It goes along with this thing we have had so much of in the last 50 years, where the litigation has gotten more and more complex, more and more convoluted. and more expensive. In other words, who can afford it these days with lawyers and everybody else charging such exorbitant fees?
Right. All right. Moving on, just a couple more things. Let's go to Trump, right? Let me share this. Always got to talk about Trump during the show, honey. He's popping. Trump confirms that he plans to deport U.S. citizens who have undocumented parents.
4 million families in America who have mixed immigration status. So I'm talking about parents who might be here illegally, but the kids are here legally. Your borders are
talking about separation.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are two aspects to this. Your border czar Tom Homan said they can be deported together.
Correct.
Is that the plan?
That way you keep those. Well, I don't want to be breaking up families. So the only way you don't break up the family is you keep them together, and you have to send them all back.
Even kids who are here legally?
Well, what you going to do if they want to stay with the father? Look, we have to have rules and regulations. You can always find something out like, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. I'll tell you what's going to be horrible. When we take a wonderful young woman who's with a criminal, and they show the woman, and she could stay by the law, but they show the woman being taken out, or they want her out, and your cameras are focused on her as she's crying, as she's being taken out of our country. And then the public turns against us. But we have to do our job, and you have to have a series.
And I want to play the second one. He's talking about the 14th Amendment. President Trump promises to end birthright citizenship on day one.
Let me ask you about some of your other promises on this topic. You promised to end birthright citizenship on day one. Is that still your plan?
Yeah, absolutely.
The 14th Amendment, though, says that, quote, all persons born in the United States are citizens. Can you get around the 14th Amendment with an executive action?
We're going to have to get a change. We'll maybe have to go back to the people, but we have to end it. We're the only country that has it.
Through an executive action?
We're the only country that has it. Do you know, if somebody sets a foot, just a foot, 1 foot, you don't need two, on our land, congratulations, you are now a citizen of the United States of America. Yes, we're going to end that because it's ridiculous.
Through executive action?
Well, if we can, through executive action. I was going to do it through executive action, but then we had to fix COVID first, to be honest with you. We have to end it.
Let's talk.
So it says the original post states the 14th Amendment has never been challenged at the Supreme Court. This is incorrect. It was challenged in Wong Kim Ark versus United States. So what about this birthright citizenship via the 14th Amendment?
It's confusing. It was something that at one time was presumed to be so obvious nobody paid attention to it. In other words,
4 million families in America.
Sorry.
In other words, you had situations where English subjects would cross from Canada into the United States and take up residence here. Nobody would check on them. They'd have children, and those children would be presumed to be U.S. citizens. It was everybody kind of welcomed because you had this huge wilderness from the Mississippi River going 1,200 miles west to the Pacific Ocean, and a fringe of settlements on the Pacific coast. So there was a need for population increase. There was some customs. There was the fact that people just couldn't fly over and walk over. They had to take steamship, a sailing ship for at least several weeks, and then that got down on a fast steamship to a week. And then you had Ellis Island, where people had to stop through and be checked out.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays you have this huge thing, massive influx across the southern border. And even on the northern border, you've got people who decide that they won't come through checkpoints or formal border crossings from Canada to the United States, and they go through those heavily wooded areas in the Northeast.
Mm-hmm.
And in the central northern areas, and it gets to be a real live mess because who's coming in? Now, I've been back and forth across the Canadian border many times, and there are checks on the Canadian side when you go from south to north. You don't just get to walk in. You go hunting, and they check your credentials and your paperwork. You come back the other way, and they do the same thing. So a relaxation of that is violating something that's always been sacrosanct, because when you're talking about a nation, you're talking about a state. They call it technically a nation state. There are three elements to a nation state. One is the territory defined by its boundaries, marked out on a map. And then you have a population, and then you have a government that tries to enhance the positive interaction between the population and the territory. So when you start saying we don't have these borders, then you wipe out one of the three legs of what a nation state is, your boundaries.
So birthright citizenship.
It's questionable.
That's the 14th Amendment, basically.
Well, not just the 14th Amendment, it's also defined in the Constitution itself.
What powers does the president have when it comes to birthright citizenship, or do they have any powers to?
Well, there are some things that have to do with applicability, especially to aliens. Also, some stuff that have to do with the president's authority as chief diplomatic officer. He can grant on his own signature, he can grant the status of being a refugee. He can grant the status, special immigration status of granting asylum to somebody. They did that after World War II when they wanted all these Nazi rocket scientists like Werner von Braun, who ran NASA and set up our space program and the program to give the United States benefit of intercontinental ballistic missiles. And the Soviets got the same thing because they scooped up a bunch of German scientists. So you have these things that can be done. You got an expedited citizenship status to Albert Einstein, who was Jewish German, and you didn't want somebody like that to be stuck in Germany with all that's in his head. So we had welcome arms to folk like that, because what you were trying to do is get the best of the world to come into the United States. And Einstein's a classic example. He wrote that letter to Franklin Delano Roosevelt and said, hey, something I came up with before World War I, relativity predicts that there can be this bomb of unimaginable power that can be readily made, and the Germans, I know from my contacts, are working on that. We better get on it too, because this is a total game changer. So Roosevelt said, okay, listening to Einstein, this brilliant scientist, we better get on our stick. And he signed off on his own signature, creating the Manhattan Project, which developed the atomic bomb in the beach.
What does that have to do with birthright citizenship?
Because what it is it dealt with, in fact, relaxing a lot of the rules that dealt with that. We brought in Germans.
So he can't, okay, listen. So he cannot rewrite or get rid of or revise the 14th Amendment, but as president of the United States, he can, by way of executive order, relax some of the logistics, or
in other words, he can say this man is a refugee. What happens under American law is if a person is a refugee and is granted asylum, political asylum, he is put in a fast track like they did Werner von Braun, and he becomes citizen of the United States automatically in 5 years. He doesn't have to take any test or anything like that.
Okay.
And he can vote.
I want to move real quick to January 6th. This is his comments on January 6th protesters.
I didn't do anything wrong. I was given the option. And the lawyers told me, a very specific lawyer, I don't have to go into who, but very high up in the administration said, sir, if you pardon yourself, you're going to look guilty. And you did nothing wrong. Oh, I had that option. I could have saved myself a lot of legal fees, but it turned out that I was right. Look at what's gone on. Everything's being dropped. I still have a Fonnie Willis, a total hoax. That's a total hoax. It's all being dropped.
I also asked the president-elect about NBC News' reporting that President Biden is considering preemptive pardons for some of the people who have clashed with Mr. Trump, including Senator-elect Adam Schiff, Dr. Anthony Fauci, and former Congresswoman Liz Cheney. As part of his response, Mr. Trump lashed out at the January 6th committee, accusing it of unfairly targeting him and even of destroying its records, which the committee denies.
And Cheney was behind it.
Well,
and so was Benny Thompson and everybody on that committee.
We're going to,
for what they did.
Yeah.
Honestly, they should go to jail.
So you think Liz Cheney should go to jail?
For what they did.
Everyone on the committee, you think?
I think everybody anybody that voted in favor.
Are you going to direct your FBI director and your attorney general to send them to jail?
Not at all. I think that they'll have to look at that, but I'm going to focus on drill, baby, drill.
All right. So
I agree with him.
Mm-hmm.
I think the whole January 6th committee should be put in jail for conspiring to violate the rights of citizens. And that whole thing was even more sinister than people get. You notice they kept talking about the insurrection on January 6th, the insurrection on January 6th, the insurrection. Hell, it wasn't but 180 people. That's not an insurrection. The reason they kept using insurrection as a term is there are two conditions that cause the constitutional protection of all citizens to be suspended. One is foreign invasion. Foreign invasion. That's term one. Term two is insurrection. The classic insurrection was the U.S. Civil War, which means the right to habeas corpus, a challenge government's authority to incarcerate someone, evaporates when you have a foreign invasion, one, or two, an insurrection. So they kept putting insurrection out there, and their insidious purpose was to condition the public to accepting that. So when the public thought about these kinds of protests for political purposes, they said, okay. Now, here's another thing, too, that's very un-American about the process. It was okay for the Democratic Party, BLM, and Antifa to go out and advocate that people burn down cities, do billions of dollars worth of damage, to have a United States Senator, two of them, Cory Booker and Kamala Harris, and a vice presidential candidate, Kamala Harris, go out and raise funds to bail out people over and over again who were arrested 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 times in a row for rioting or inciting a riot. That was okay. But 180 people to spontaneously do something on their own became grounds for hyping it up as an insurrection to suspend the rights guaranteed to American citizens through the Constitution and the Bill of Rights.
One last thing on Trump. So over the weekend on Saturday, he flew to Paris for the grand opening of the Notre-Dame Cathedral. Beautiful cathedral. Oh my God. let me share this little clip. And of course, he met with a lot of foreign prime ministers, presidents, dignitaries, all that, right? And this is him meeting again with President Macron.
Macron. Macron. Macron.
Bienvenue à vous. Je suis heureux d'accueillir à nouveau le président élu Donald Trump à Paris pour l'ouverture de Notre-Dame 5 ans après. Il était président à l'époque quand le feu a pris la cathédrale, je m'en souviens. President, it's a great honor for French people to welcome you 5 years later. And you were at that time president, the first time. And I remember the solidarity and your immediate action. So welcome back again. We are very happy to have you here.
Thank you very much. Very great honor. And we had a great relationship, as everyone knows. We accomplished a lot together. And the people of France are spectacular. I guess it's one of our largest groups in the United States, French people. And we respect them and we love them. Very talented people. Extremely energetic people that you know very well. Yeah. And it's an honor to be here. We had a good time together and we had a lot of success, really great success working together on defense and offense too. And it certainly seems like the world is going a little crazy right now. Yeah. And we'll be talking about that. Thank you very much for being here.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
So this was, you can say, his first official foreign trip before he steps foot in the Oval Office again.
Say official.
Well,
he doesn't hold any office yet.
No, not yet, but yeah, semi-official. However, this is a question I want to ask. So, two things. And before you answer these, before I even ask you these two questions, I want everybody to hit that like button. If you would like to send in a super chat, please do. I don't think we're going to take phone calls because, Judge, you got somewhere to.
Right, you can go for it.
Oh, well. Hit the like button. If you have a question or a comment, please do so via the super chat. And most likely I will be dropping the phone. He has time. So please like and share this video. So question. Do you think that the foreign presidents, dignitaries, prime ministers, all those heads of states, do you think that they prefer Trump over Biden and the relationships will be better? And then the second question, I want you to go into quickly the history of Notre-Dame.
Okay. Let's just say it's not a matter of liking Trump more than they like Biden. It's like having respect for a man versus, well, this is who we have to put up with. And it looks like Biden is getting more done in the month, got more done in the month of November and a week or two into December than this incompetent administration of, it looks like Trump got more done in November and the beginning of December than this incompetent Biden-Harris administration was able to accomplish in 4 years. In other words, see, there's this factor of, are you dealing with a badass or are you dealing with a lightweight? And Biden is essentially a lightweight, plus he's a crook. He's been angling on what can you get for my family and what can we make off of it. And the thing of it is if you're paying somebody under the table, you own them just as thoroughly as you do if you pay them over the table. They work for you. So other than for appearances, it's kind of hard for the bosses to take an employee seriously when the employee starts making demands.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And Notre-Dame, a quick history summation of Notre-Dame and the famous cathedral.
It took more than a century to build that place. It was an exorbitant waste of public funds at a time when they were needed much elsewhere, but it was exemplary of why religion was something that the people who wrote the Constitution wanted to keep in check. In other words, it's an impressive edifice. It's kind of strange looking at the artwork that is so reflective of pedophilia, but
really,
yeah, I mean, see, look, pews in a church are a relatively new thing. So, other than the aristocracy sitting in their already placed chairs and benches, most of the people sat on the floor. So imagine the flickering candlelight and lamplight inside one of these tall cathedrals, and you've got some priest laying down on their backs with their robes hiked up, looking at these pictures of naked little children and boys with their bare penises out, and all of the males with their penises out. And it looks like pornography, especially when you get the flickering lighting from candlelight and lanterns. So it's interesting looking at what's going on inside a medieval church that way.
oh, okay. We may got to dive a little bit deeper into that on.
Oh, yeah. You know, when it hit me, my wife fancied herself to be an artist, which she was. And we were in the New York Metropolitan Art Museum, and I'm fascinated by painting. I won a few awards for doing that stuff years and years ago, and I'm looking at it. And then I'm troubled by all of these naked youth of the same sex to the painters, the artists. And I'm going, and then it hit me. I said, oh, it's pedophile pornography that we're looking at, or gay pornography. That's what we're looking at. Oh, and it clicked. So while she was fascinated with certain exhibits, I think they even had Mona Lisa there, that week. I went back around and I started looking at the stuff, just walked around again. I said, oh, yeah. And that's on the ceiling. And oh, yeah. Okay. That's what they're up to.
The United States donated the most money to restore that cathedral. I think it was 100 million or between 60 to 100 million. But yeah, so Elon Musk was there. You have it was this Black opera singer from South Africa. She performed Amazing Grace. Listen, the ceremony was beautiful. The cathedral was beautiful. But yeah, thank you for that background history. I want to, so guys, if you want to call in, I dropped the number in the link. I don't know what is going on with my Wi-Fi here with me. I don't know. But yeah, so I pinned the number in the chat. I put it in the chat. So if you want to call in. Thank you so much to everyone that sent in super chat. Miss Ebony, here we go. What is going on? I need stronger Wi-Fi in my house. Okay. Miss Ebony G, salute to you. Very interested to see what you and Judge Joe Brown have to say about this topic from a legal aspect and a theory aspect, working remotely. Willie Mays, thank you. Sometimes it's just I'm white and I say so. I'm just saying. Thank you to her Zoljan von Ballen. How is it that Prince Harry mentioned January 6th in an interview before it occurred and MSM didn't mention it? Do you mean MSNBC? I don't know. And thank you, Robert Dupree, Deuce the Guy. You just sent in a super chat. So thank you. So guys, phone lines are open. I pinned the link. Yes, it's a whole bunch of numbers. Sorry, I haven't had time to figure out how to just get one number for Zoom, but that's just what it is right now. So bear with me. So while we wait for people to call in, if they do decide to call in, it's another thing I wanted to bring up. And this
working at home, very briefly. So a whole lot of people can't really be trusted to work at home because when they had COVID-19, I went on a lot of lunch dates that went on for 2, 3, 4 hours at a time. They were only supposed to be 60 minutes.
On these
Because,
people working at home.
yeah, all they had to do was get on the phone and, oh, I'm working on that. We just had another conference, blah, 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 blah. And the whole time I've been sitting there looking at them,
Well, we do have a call, and I'm going to take this call. And after this call, I want to bring up something about Memphis. Let's see.
all that farce.
Yeah. So 256. 256. Oh, wait, let me ask to unmute. 256 unmute. Oh, there you go. 256.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Dana.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Judge.
Hi
I'm
there.
okay. How are y'all?
Good.
My bud. Well, there's all this stuff going on. Have you seen the new thing come out with James O'Keefe about the Helene survivors?
No.
He went out there, James O'Keefe, to check on them, and they're not letting anybody in. They've got people that are Americans sleeping in tents on their property because they don't have no money to go anywhere or do anything.
Oh, from the hurricane in North Carolina?
Yes.
Yes.
There's still people.
Wasn't
Yep.
FEMA supposed to build tents for them, like temporary housing tents?
They did on some of them, but they only got like a percentage rate.
Okay.
Nothing like they
Tell us
need.
about what did he uncover?
He found out that there's they called it a holding facility, but James O'Keefe called it like a little camp, FEMA camp. So I don't know which one you want to call it, but he found out that the people, they're not getting what they need from the FEMA. FEMA has just completely walked off, dropped the ball, and figure out who's doing what and where all the money's going. And they wouldn't answer any of his questions. They wouldn't show them. He tried to get them their ID, and they kept turning their badges around because they have a family and they don't want to be showing what's wrong, what's going on, that they've done something wrong.
Yeah, and
so
see,
he dropped.
The mainstream media is not talking about it anymore.
Of course not.
And
No. And
I
Biden.
follow
I'm
him on
sorry, go
X.
ahead.
No, I was going to say, I do follow him on X, and I did see something on X about it. And the mainstream media wasn't picking it up or nothing. I'm like, oh, they still dealing FEMA?
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Yep, that's it.
So I'm like,
that little lady right there, see, there's her tent. See that like magic lifestyle she has been put into?
Mm-hmm.
Makes my head explode.
Yourself with gold today.
And Biden goes across over there and talks about the people in Africa from their disasters, their man-made disasters. I want to pull him, slap him upside the head.
Don't say that. They'll prosecute you.
They'll prosecute you.
I didn't say I would do it. I just said it feels like, you just want to shank something. I'll get me a glow stick and shake it, because at least a light would come on with that,
So yeah, so again, so right now these people who are displaced because their homes were destroyed, they supposed to be putting them in temporary housing, and FEMA's just not moving.
Exactly. And nobody will cover it.
It's an axiom of political science that one of the most effective methods of being able to misappropriate / steal public funds is to create new ways of doing so. So you come up with this bureaucratic expansion to finance, give monies to aid, to benefits to illegals who are a group uniquely situated to be very unproductive of investigative efforts. You get them, and that becomes a good way for the typical Democrat who's in authority in these cities that are involved. You give him a pretty good way of being able to steal from the public trough.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, there's NGOs that are getting money from the, I mean, this is going all across all kinds of stuff. These NGOs, non-government organizations, they're getting money from the federal government, but they're not helping Americans. They're helping themselves and other people.
Oh yeah,
They
it's
can,
a lot of NGOs.
you know,
They're
just
ripoffs.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Well,
it's bad. These
well,
people are evil.
no, they are. But
No,
I was going to say thank you. I
no,
really
I don't have no intention of going anywhere near Joe Biden or any of them. I don't want nothing to do with
for
him. I
the
just want him out of my country.
I appreciate you
want him out of
letting us
the
keep
White House.
Yeah, I appreciate you.
Thanks, Judge.
Hey.
Thank you, Dana. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
I like Miss Fiber. I love because she comes with the news that the news don't report on. Because I totally forgot about, we all forgot about the Helene hurricane victims.
Yeah, a whole lot of people that are American citizens are forgotten in favor of those who are illegals.
Yes. Yes. All right. This is what
Memphis.
Yeah, let me pull this clip. I wanted to play this clip first and then have you speak on it. So Memphis Police Department uses excessive force and discriminates against Black people. The U.S. Justice Department said following an investigation.
Based on a comprehensive investigation of the city of Memphis and the Memphis Police Department, the Justice Department has found a pattern or practice of conduct that violates people's civil and constitutional rights. Based on this investigation, we found that the police in Memphis use excessive force, that they stop, search, and arrest people unlawfully, that their policies have a discriminatory effect on Black people, and that they discriminate against people with behavioral health disabilities. The people of Memphis deserve fair, transparent, non-discriminatory constitutional policing. Nothing less. We are prepared to work together to write a new chapter for this city. But make no mistake, the pattern or practice of misconduct that we found in Memphis must end. And federal law authorizes us to sue for an injunction if necessary to accomplish that objective.
Now,
this is a last gasp of the blue Democratic Party that controls Memphis. It's the only blue area in the whole state of Tennessee, which is otherwise uniformly red.
Now, wait, give us the stats of the
I'm going there. I had a little prepared speech on this. See, it's the Democratic Party fallback. You can always blame race and get a conditioned response that's predictable. The fact of the matter is the chief of police for Memphis is a Black female from Fulton County, Atlanta, Georgia. The former acting assistant chief was her buddy, a guy from Fulton County, Georgia, Black, who had to resign when he was finding out the city was putting him up in a Hilton hotel and flying him in first class back and forth every week. He didn't even live in Memphis. It kind of rings hollow when 75% of the police department is black, 75% of the jury pool is black, 60% of the criminal court judges are black and female, and somewhere around 80% of the lower level criminal court judges are black and female. It's like your sheriff's department has a black male for a sheriff. 75% of the deputies in the Memphis Shelby County Sheriff's Department are black. So where exactly does this white racism come in? See, in other words, it's a rough area. And the real problem is that the chief got brought in because she's got enough deficits, got fired from Atlanta, got fired, about to be fired from Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina before Memphis hires her, that if you want to steal, bring in a crook to be in charge of investigating the thieves. Makes it easier. Another thing is the previous mayor was trying to get an exemption from being term limited, and he brought in a Delta, and he got a mass reception that was positive from the Deltas, and he thought the black women were going to deliver what he needed, which they didn't. And then you have outright collusion. There is a very important thing going on in this case of Tyree Nichols. It's got to do with standing to bring the legal action, and it also has to do with amateurism in the profession of law. Mm-hmm. And it's got to do with the fact that even though you had Al Sharpton and Queenla Harris Imhoff come in and Ben Crump come in, and they had all of these rallies, the problem was it wasn't really a police misconduct thing. It was allegations that the street has that the victim was messing with the women of several of the cops in his unit. So it was personal, didn't have anything to do with.
What about the Memphis Five?
Yeah, the Memphis Five, Tyree Nichols.
Well, this is the thing here.
So
mayor black, police chief black, majority of police officers are black, 75% of the whole city, municipality, and government workers are black, 75% of Memphis population is black. So when you talk about this type of discrimination against black people, between the police department, right, being black people being discriminated against or more harshly treated, well, they're being more harshly treated by black police officers. So you're talking about black.
The whole system. You've got a majority black city council, by the way, and a majority black county commission, majority black board of education. So what you have is, it's an interesting way to disguise stealing from the public. I know what's going on. They're stealing. So they're misappropriating funds, and a lot of money is going under the cover. And this is a way to distract people's attention from incompetence. What's happening here is the city is completely out of control. It is an island of chaos. Even the gangsters are complaining about things out of control, but the people that are in charge don't have a clue. The chief of police wasn't good in Atlanta, certainly wasn't good when she was in Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina.
Charlotte. Was it? Oh,
Charlotte.
Was it Charlotte or was it Raleigh? I could be wrong. I don't know.
Raleigh, Durham. I think it was Charlotte, whatever. I'll look it up. In other words, the incompetence was extraordinary. There's no reason that person should be in. And this is the first civil service chief that Memphis had in more than 40 years. So there's no reason for this person to have been made civil service, which means you can't fire them or replace them without good cause. That person showing an absolute inept, incompetent, if not criminally deficient ability to manage this police department is been receiving raise after raise. So now the only person in the state that gets paid as much is the governor. We have a horrible problem. Gangs have infiltrated the police department, the sheriff's department. They are running the jails and nobody knows what to do with them because the people that are supposed to be in charge don't have a clue. They're too busy doing something that the mayor got on the pipeline last week and started talking about. First priority is to improve downtown Memphis, which is no longer an industrial center, very exclusive residential area with some entertainments. And they want to say that Memphis needs this so it can maintain the revenues from a tourism industry that has a very low return to the city and the county because of criminality and because of under the table payoffs and because of a criminally low tax rate and a criminally low, a high tendency to spend public dollars to the tune of right now, almost $1 billion has been earmarked for putting in some skyboxes at the FedEx Forum for financing a major international hotel chain to do some downtown renovations and for somebody to get a huge windfall on doing a downtown residential development. Same group of people. And there's no excuse for that.
But this is another thing too I want to bring into the fold because you saying corruption, and I agree with you, right? You live in Memphis, so you know firsthand. Me on the outside, okay, you're saying that the Memphis Police Department uses excessive force and discriminates against Black people. But when it's
I don't think they use excessive force.
No, but the point, hear me out. If it is excessive force, if you are being discriminatory, if you are unlawfully stopping and searching and arresting majority of Black people than anybody else, but these are Black people doing it to Black people, is that still classified as discrimination? And
shouldn't be.
Wait, listen. And if so, what does that say in a broader scope when we talk about racism in America? This could be defining what racism is in America. It's not just Black and white.
Racism in America is not what it used to be. There are still manifestations, but you're more likely to find intense racism in a place like Hollywood. That had to do with Diddy setting up what he did, 15 years worth of video, so he could get extortion information on people that might try to do the same thing on him. That's the way Hollywood works.
When you have a Black person in authority singling out Black people to do harm.
But that's not racism. That's something else. The reason it's being called racism
or discrimination.
The reason it's being called that is because the Democratic Party over the last 100-some years has either been the target of those accusations when it was the party of the Klan, but it found out since it was doing the wrong things how to turn it to its own use. So it becomes a triggering mechanism so the Democratic Party can diffuse all attention to itself by simply coming up and saying there is racism, and everybody goes, and we've seen a couple of examples on some of the clips you had where people are demanding, an address. This is racist, so and so. No, it's not.
Let me add this. It's not discrimination. Wait, but they should be saying extensive force or unlawful stops. Why are you bringing race into it? Why are you bringing discrimination where it's all Black?
Because it's a triggering thing that distracts attention from realities. Now, in Memphis, the reality is people don't pay attention to who's doing what until somebody sticks a sample ballot under their noses as they're walking into the polling place. All right. So they're voting for people they don't even know, never even heard of. All right, that's one thing. So the people they vote for are responsible for bringing in the people that are in charge of this mess. And since it's not white people in charge, it's other black people in charge. You get black people responsible for bringing in black bosses who are incompetent, who are incapable of carrying out their assigned task of managing these agencies. So the other thing is the people don't ever vest political consequence on the idiots that are responsible for this mess. So the Democratic Party appointed the Justice Department officials who were interfacing with Memphis. And of course, they went for the mantra that it's discriminatory to trigger the woke folk and the BLM reactions, which are basically not dealing with what we need to deal with. What we need is programs that are set up that implement positive reactions with the individuals who live in these communities with maximum input from them. Also, we need to address the problem that one of the worst things wrong is the lack of manhood in the Memphis hood. And the Democratic Party still wants to push methods around here that make that worse. So we have a big charade going on and a lot of wasted time with these accusations that aren't founded in reality. One of the things that you'll run into from a lot of people who live in Memphis is, why don't the police get tougher on some of these criminals?
Real quick, J.R. Williams, I don't know what you're talking about the audio, because I just the audio, our audio is not cutting in and out, honey. That's on your end, and I hope the connection with YouTube isn't messing up on your end. I don't know, but our audio is fine. Let me just do an audio check, guys. Is the audio cutting in and out? And I do see someone. I'm gonna bring them in on the phone lines, and then that'll be it. No, one more thing after okay. So after this caller, one more thing I want to bring up, which is quick, but so yeah, it's okay. It's going. Oh, I don't know, but yeah, honey, it's a lot of content we're going to be having starting next year when Trump get into office. Content on Trump, content on the Democrats, because now the only thing they can't use the illegals as bodies. So what they got to do is, okay, we got to work with what we got, and we got to keep scaring black people about discrimination and racism. And Trump is a racist, and white people are going to get you, and they're going to shoot you in the back. The BS, the propaganda bullshit. Okay, Jermaine, why did you hang up? I was just about to come to you. Hold on. All right. So thank you, Lester, for the super chat. Says Judge Joe Brown for mayor. Yes.
Already did that. I got told, by the way, the gentleman's name is Benny Smith, who got fired by the Shelby County Election Commission, but hired by the State Election Commission because he was revealing the sources and the methods of voting fraud in Shelby County, which are massive. He's proved that a lot of the races had outcomes in reality different than what was reported, and a lot of elections got stolen. He's been working with a company called Black Box Inc. So this place, in spite of what the Biden administration was saying, since they got benefit of it, has been notorious over the last 25 years for stealing elections. And before that, you go back to 1974, when they got caught red-handed, even with paper ballots and ballot boxes, where they were trying to conceal a bunch of them that materially altered the outcome of a congressional election.
Well, I'll say what I got to say for Thursday. I want to move on to this one last thing, and nobody else isn't calling in. That's fine, because I'm tired. One last thing. Yeah, I like this one. Bittersweet, but oh my God. Lewis Hamilton is leaving Mercedes after 12 years. Great race, Formula One. So the last thing we're going to talk about is Formula One. So Lewis Hamilton, greatest auto racer in history ever. 8-time world champion. I don't care what nobody say. On the record, he's 7, but he about to officially get number 8 and maybe number 9 when he goes to Ferrari next season. But this season was his final season with Mercedes AMG F1. He was with Mercedes for 12 years and he got 7 medals.
And 6 world championships.
World champions, but we are claiming 7 world champions.
And also, the first one he got was with what?
McLaren,
which just got to be constructor
world champion, right?
World champion again.
So
and they use Mercedes engines, by the way.
Right, they do. So this is Mercedes. Yesterday posted this X tweet. In an honest world, he would have won that 8th with Mercedes. That day in 2021 will forever haunt me. Goodbye, Lewis. Heartbroken. Oh my God. And the picture says it all. The picture says it all because everyone knows the truth that Lewis Hamilton won in 2021. It wasn't Max Verstappen.
The rules were basically this. With just a few laps to go, somebody had an accident. So they put the safety car out, leading the cars around the track. So under the rules, when you have that safety car out, it has to stay out 1 extra lap after the problem is cleared up. 1 extra lap would have meant that the race was finished with Lewis Hamilton in first place and winning the world championship. Mercedes called the race director and asked specifically, are you following the rules on this? And were advised, yes. The race director, however, had a conversation with Red Bull and Max Verstappen saying they weren't going to follow the rules and they were going to bring the safety car in 1 lap early, so go resume your racing. So what wound up happening was Red Bull brought their car in with Verstappen and got a new set of tires, and it was allowed to catch up to come in second place, not almost a minute behind Hamilton's Mercedes, but right up on his bumper, real bumper on his gearbox, literally. And surprising everybody, the race director called the safety car in with just 1 lap left to go. Verstappen damn near ran Hamilton off the road and won. But the rules were clear. It said the race director should not have brought the safety car in for another whole lap, which meant the race would have been finished under the yellow flag with Mercedes in the first place. And Hamilton with an unprecedented 8 victories. There's one other person, Michael Schumacher, who in 70 some years won 7 like Hamilton, and the other guy is a guy named Juan Miguel Fangio from Argentina who won 5, and he got that back in 1957, and that stood until Schumacher got 7 in this century. So yeah, they're calling him the greatest of all time. If I'm not mistaken, he has more pole positions than any other driver ever. He has more fastest laps than any other driver ever. He has more what they call hat tricks, which means he qualified first on pole, led every lap during the race, set the fastest lap of the race, and won the race. He has more laps he's led in a race or in races total than any other driver, and more fastest laps in a race than anybody else has ever, and more race victories than anybody else ever. So I think Michael Schumacher, who is a German who raced for Ferrari, is in second place in number of races won, but he's 56 shy of Hamilton's total.
Okay. So I just wanted to highlight that real quick. And D Grant, thank you so much for the super chat. It says,
Sir Lewis Hamilton.
Sir Lewis Hamilton, exactly. Thank you, D Grant. He says, Judge Joe, should be a law where LGBTQ should not enter into the military. It does bother me. I am a military vet.
We had that.
Well, it wasn't don't ask, don't tell. So you just didn't tell them what you were.
No, but before that, but Clinton came up with don't ask, don't tell. Essentially, Obama boy furthered
The
it.
military said if you are gay, you can't join.
Yeah, well, here's one of the main problems. If you talk to somebody's nephew who
That's
was over,
discrimination.
no, here's what the deal is. If you talk to somebody's nephew or son who actually served over in Afghanistan or Iraq, here's what the problem is. Over there, if you try to fraternize with American female service personnel, you will be disciplined. It's a no-no. If you try to fraternize with the Allies, you'll wind up in Leavenworth doing time. But if you're gay, everybody else can hear you moaning and having orgasms all night long where you have embedded sex partners, which is bad for the morale of everybody else who cannot have unisex barracks and get prohibited from dealing with people of the opposite sex on pain of punishment.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's not good for morale. In other words, you do a year-long tour over there. If you're straight, that means you're without for a year.
There are a lot of people who probably definitely back then and even today who are, but they just don't disclose it. So, I mean, that's your business, but you know, I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. If you take the stats, which have been pretty consistent, Kerner report, you deal with the U.S. Census Bureau, you deal with studies on it. These are the following statistics. Less than 0.5% of the American population is tranny. Less than 1% is lesbian, and less than 1.5% is homosexual male. You get a mix where 4.5% of the population is either male or female bisexual, but that means they have an election, and sexual activity on the job in the military, so to speak, has been prohibited. So you have basically less than 2% of the American population getting sexual privileges in the military because they're homosexual that are not enjoyed by the overwhelming 99.5%, 98+% of the American population is heterosexual, do not get these sexual access privileges in the military.
Okay.
Sounds like discrimination to me.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning into this early show. And thank you, Judge, for being available because I kept begging.
I've been ill the last week, so you know I haven't fully recovered, but here I am.
I'll get into this on Thursday. Did you get it, Dana? Did I get what Sunday? Did I get what? I don't know. What is it that I'm supposed to get? Did you send me an email? Are you going to be available Thursday for?
I'm assuming I'm still breathing. Yeah.
Assuming that you're still breathing. Yeah.
I might come back and do a hated show. Boo.
Oh, and I forgot I got to do my Christmas registry because, yeah, what the hell was that just happened? I have to do my Christmas registry, because I had a birthday registry, but I need to do a Christmas registry. And, but I'm only going to have one place, Women Sonoma. So I'll drop that on Wednesday. Yeah. So I'm not going to talk about it now. Did you talk about Daniel? Yes, that was in the beginning. This is what, 3 hours. That was in the beginning of the show. Yes. So it's 3 hours and 31 minutes. We've been up here and we're about to end it. Majority, 58%. So I asked the question, do you think Jay-Z is being extorted? 58% said no, 41 says yes. I say yes. But thank you guys. At first of all, everybody that sent in a super chat, thank you. Love you the most. This Fiber that called in, love ya. Jermaine, I don't know what happened to you because I was about to bring you in, but you left. Everybody in the chat, everybody watching, thank you guys so much. And thank you, Judge, for, like I said, being available early today. Appreciate you. And like, share this video, comment below in the comment section, and we will definitely see you on Thursday. So, Judge, closing remarks.
Yeah. Don't dash to the mall in the wore out, broke down ride, spending all the way with your credit long gone and your checks overdrawn, buying presents and gifts for your low down, trifling kids and friends. Don't get taken in. But be safe.
You're buying Christmas presents.
That's all I do. I don't get them. But,
I want to tell people, don't buy it for your ungrateful family, friends, and kids.
You sing it to the tune of Jingle Bells. I came up with it about 35 years ago. Dashing to the mall in a wore out, broke down ride, rushing through the stores, spending all the way.
I never got a birthday or Christmas present.
It is long gone. Your checks are overdrawn. Oh, what fun to buy and spend for your trifling kids and friends. Oh, bye. Spend your money today. It's so much fun going broke over the holidays. etc.
Well, I never got a Christmas present nor a birthday present from you.
I don't go into it, but I don't know.
I think because
no clue what to give people.
It's not that you feel as though like I already do enough for her, so I don't got to give. Well, technically, you really don't have to give me nothing, but
you get Christmas all year long.
Kind of, but whatever.
Santa.
I want more. All right, Judge. Good night.
Good night.
Good everybody. I got you. Good night, goons. Great show, early show. Probably back. Well, Thursday night we'll be back to doing it at night. I think. I don't know. It depends. I'll probably try to make him do an early show on Thursday. But anyway, please, like I said, comment below, like, and share. And I will see you guys Wednesday. By myself, Dana with the Data podcast on Wednesday. And then we're back here with the Judge on Thursday. So good night. Have a wonderful week, everybody. Stay safe. Bye.